Hey guys, you might notice that the audio in this episode is a little weird. My settings messed up during the recording, even though I tested the audio 3 times before recording. I don't exactly know what happened, but basically, my end of the conversation in the initial recording was way too loud, and I echoed during parts of it, and Adara was way, way too quiet compared to my audio levels, and she was kind of being drowned out by white noise. And I watched tutorial after tutorial trying to fix it. I did the best I could. It's more usable now, but I do still echo in the beginning, and I know that that might turn people off to listen to this, and I just want to say that I hope it's okay, even though the audio is a little weird. I still echo in the beginning, and there's some parts towards the end where Adara is hard to hear. But I decided that I would much rather have this conversation go up with some funny audio quality than not at all, because I liked how genuine the conversation was. Semba, what are you doing? I decided that I really liked how genuine the conversation was. It was the first time me and her had spoken voice to voice, and I just hope it's okay with you guys, and I hope you guys check out Good Girl Company after listening to this episode. The links are down in the description and the pinned comment. And one last thing, because of my friend Jason, he's the only reason that this episode is able to go up, because he has way more audio editing experience than me, and he was the one who made the audio go from completely unusable to usable. Granted, it's not perfect. Again, I'm sorry, Adara, that I messed up on your episode. I hope you all still give it a listen. And, yeah, here's the episode. Hi everybody, welcome back to the KaitenCast, my very inconsistently airing show. I have a new guest today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Adara. I'm the creative director of Good Girl Company.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. This took a really long time to actually get the recording day, because I was sick for like a whole month. I think I contacted you like 3 months ago, actually.
So I feel like it was 3 months ago, but time has flown by.
So I mentioned your company during the episode with Victoria, the Doodles, and I don't know why, I was actually surprised when I found out that you actually listened to that episode.
What? Of course I'm gonna listen! And Victoria mentioned it, and I was just like, oh heck yeah, I'm listening to this. As soon as she mentioned it before, I think it was posted though, because she mentioned it, and then I think a week or two later I saw it. I was like, where is it? And then I was like, oh, let's listen to this. And me and my sister both pulled it up on the big screen TV and listened to it, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Oh, really? That's awesome. That makes me nervous that people are actually watching this. So, with other guests, I have kind of a vague understanding of their endeavors and their ambition, because a lot of people I have on are artists. What was it like starting Good Girl Company, and like what was the motive and inspiration to like do it?
It was nerve-wracking, because I've never had an official business before, but I've had like hobbies. I did photography for a while. I was in school as an art major. I was studying for studio art major. So I was in school during the day, and I was a nanny. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't start a business right now. And it actually ended up being a gift from my boss. So shout out to them. They literally gave me my business license.
You can do that?
And they're lawyers. So that was a blessing, because I probably wouldn't have done it. I was kind of like second guessing myself. And then once I got the license, I was like, well, why the heck not? Like, I had been planning it for a year. I had literally had everything written down. Obviously, I was a studio art major because I have too many art mediums. I like to draw clothing. I'm really good at that. I like to draw women. I can do architect and all that stuff. And then I'm good at photography, and I like graphic design, but unlike Victoria, can't do digital art. I hate it. It's awful.
Really?
And I don't have the patience. When I came up with the company, like 2 years before we even launched, I went to my sister and I was like, I want a brand I need something that's like female based. I wanted it to be a platform really just for women, and a voice that I felt like we needed, because so much was happening, and I just felt like we were being heard, and not just for women in general, but also racial and LGBTQ. I wanted to be able to speak on everything, and also give us a platform to be creative, because I didn't want to, being in school, I felt like I had to choose what I wanted to do. Like, it was like, oh, are you going to paint, or are you going to do this? And And I was like, no, I just want to be able to do everything at one time. I want it all in one brand. So that was what we came up with, and my sister was behind me on it. So I was like, okay, let's just do it. And once I got the license, it was like, well, there's nothing holding us back now.
That's awesome. Hold on. There's so much for me to unwrap in that story, because there's a few points I want to ask questions about. To have a business license, is it not required that you, like, have some sort of business degree?
Oh, yeah. Like, basically just, you're certifying your business. Like, you're going to state saying, this is my business name. This is where I'm located, or where my business is located. It's literally just you getting your what's called SIN number. So like if I make money and stuff, it's like taxes, everything. It's me saying I'm legal, like this is real business. I think there's some bend to it, like if someone in Canada decided to make a name for this, but I think it's just like mostly in the US and the States. So they just legalized my business for me, and it made it so if I sold anything, basically the state knows what I'm doing.
Okay, that makes sense. See, that, like, changed my perception of how something like this can happen. But that's super cool that, like, this is something you'd been thinking about for a while, and you just kind of had people who believed in you enough to give you the opportunity to do it. And something that you talked about, too, that I've noticed from afar, obviously, when I became close friends, so a previous best friend of mine was a woman of color, and she told me that growing up, she didn't feel like she had anybody to look up to, which was why her goal in life was to, like, be somebody that her younger self could look up to. I think about it, and I realize how true that is, because the only time I ever heard anybody talk about, like, being able to look up to a woman of color was when Wonder Woman came out, and that was in 2017. Systematic prejudice is something that it's interesting because it takes both a lot of effort and somebody brave to kind of step forth and try to do something about it. And the only way to really do something about it is to kind of acknowledge it and kind of speak up about it. And I know that can get nasty just depending on circumstances or environment. You never had any problems with anything like that yet, have you?
It getting nasty? No, but we have actually talked about it. I think, okay, it's true. Looking up to someone, I don't think I had anyone that was a person of color that I looked up to growing up. And that kind of sad, it's probably sad, but I think a lot of the media, what it shows, when it shows someone that's a person of color, it was always a stereotype that I didn't fit into. So I couldn't relate to that person, and I didn't look up to them because I didn't understand them. I didn't look like that, or I didn't live the way they lived. So it was really weird to be like, oh, okay, I can't relate to that. So I ended up looking up to people who weren't people of color because I related to their personalities more so. But I'm from Wilmington, which is a predominantly white city, so it wasn't abnormal to me at the time. I think as I got older and I read more about my own culture, and also I think my family, thank you for them, and the people that I've worked for have made me more well-rounded when it comes to culture. Like, I'm Native American and African American, and that in itself is like two, probably not the worst, but it's not the best of representation, you know. And I didn't grow up really seeing a lot of people that were those things, and I don't think I ever saw any Native Americans in general other than in like Old Western. So that made me more, I wanted to be that person. So for sure that. And then my brothers and sisters are Puerto Rican, so it made me look out more for what was going on in Latino community, because that could be my brother and my sister. Like every day, that's something I think about. Like with the election from last year, that like woke me up into, this is not just about me anymore. And then I nannied for a few Indian families, and now I'm learning Hindi, and I'm into like Indian government and everything. And it made me open up into all of these different problems. Like I felt like I was this person that was focusing on what was going on here in my area. And that's why I say it's not just women problems, because a lot of the stuff that like we have coming out that we're going to be addressing, it's a world problem. Like I focus on anything that's important. It's not just about us, because at the end of the day, what happens here is happening somewhere else. So I think that I've just had the privilege to be around enough culture to be able to see what I think a lot of people don't see because they don't have the chance to. So I've learned that I can't blame someone for not having the privilege to see, you know, the issues. So I can only educate you. And as we're seeing some trouble with it, I don't know if you've seen it, but we do have a rape culture shirt.
Yes.
Before we came out with that shirt, that was the one thing. My sister, she's only 16, so she knows she knows the main point of what that is, but she has not experienced anything that has to do with it or, noticed it. So when we brought it up, I was like, there's going to be a lot of people that could hate us for this shirt. Like, the comments, I was like, this is not... It's not a topic that is something someone wants to talk about. And even with me wearing my shirt, I can't wear it to work. I mean, I work with kids. And I tell my sister, she obviously doesn't care because she wears it to school. She has the sweater and she wears it to school all the time. And I'm like, you don't get in trouble for it. And, you don't want them to, but it's like, realistically, the world we live in, that's not something that is really okay.
Yeah, that was the one where I saw it. How do I say this? It made me think a lot, which I think was the point, because I thought about if I were to get that, because that was probably the one that stood out to me the most, and probably the topic that I think needs to be understood the most, because something as scary to talk about as that is usually not understood very well. But then on the flip side of that, it was like, I probably wouldn't be able to wear that in public because of, just, I don't even know how to word this, like, the shock value of seeing the word rape on my sweater, or just people's response to just seeing those words. For those listening who don't know, it says rape culture with a line through it. I'm actually surprised. Your sister is 16 in high school. I'm surprised she has not gotten in trouble for wearing that. I feel like you would have probably gotten expelled for wearing a shirt that said rape on it.
I feel like they would have maybe turned it inside out, or...
Oh, yeah. I think, at minimum, turn it inside out, and then the medium one is, like, get rid of it, and then the maximum is, like, get suspended. Yeah.
We need to call your parents, for sure.
Maybe the climate of public schooling has changed, because, I am getting old at this point, so I don't know how school officials feel about that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, too, with you talking about, like, culture and stuff, and it's probably the thing that, because, just the fact of the matter is I'm not a woman, so I didn't grow up experiencing that kind of, oh man, I'm doing so bad with words today, that kind of, what's the opposite of privilege? I'm gonna say prejudice. I didn't grow up with that type of prejudice, but what I've noticed with you telling that story and the people that I grew up with, because I grew up with mostly white people, and when you're in an environment like that, it's less likely that people you grow up with in that environment have been exposed to other cultures, and so most people that I knew didn't know other cultures, and everybody that I looked up to, I usually looked up to because they were artistic or they made cartoons. And it really wasn't until the internet got bigger that I started looking up and getting inspired by other minorities and hearing their stories, because I didn't really have that available to me before. And, I know a lot of people in person who, like, for example, they have a prejudice or, like, they hate Muslims or something, but then in reality, they've never even met any Muslim people. Or, like, a big one for me, for people, like, to this day, like, people I've grown up with and people that I know still, they refer to white people as normal, like, I'll be like, oh, are they Latino? And they'll be like, no, they're normal. And that always, like, bothers me, because
I haven't heard that one before.
It's, like, the number one, like, systematic racist thing that I don't like, because the worst part about it is I know it's not to be aggressive, but, like, that mindset is just ingrained with how they grew up, that, like, white equals normal. And that's something that rubs me the wrong way. I'm always scared talking about it, because I'm always like, it's not at the fault of the individual, and, like, they're not, like, they're not attacking me or anything, but it's an unfortunate truth.
Well, I think it's cool that the internet kind of helped you get some of that. I don't know, I think a lot of the reason why I come up the way I am is because I didn't really have internet until I was a little bit older. I didn't have a cell phone. My mom had me pretty young, and grew up with my great-grandparents and my grandparents. I had, and that with my mom being younger, I was around a lot of people. So everything that I kind of knew, I knew at a young age, and they kind of made me aware of the world that I was living in. But I never had to deal with it myself. I was, I guess, blessed enough to where I never had to experience any of it. But I've seen other people and, heard other people's stories of what they've experienced. And I think I kind of felt out of place because I moved from Wilmington to Raleigh, which is I would say more of a big city, and there's a lot of different races here, more of a melting pot, and I didn't fit in, so I dealt with prejudice, but I dealt with it from everybody. It was like, I'm the country girl. I listen to country music, which isn't black enough. It wasn't cool, so the white kids weren't really okay with me, but the black kids really didn't want to hang out with me. So I kind of ended up hanging out with a lot of Latinos because they thought I was cool because my family had Puerto Ricans and I knew a lot about the culture. I had seen prejudice, but I always thought it was just me, and it never related to, racism or anything like that. It's really just how people depict you based on what they think you are, and not really has anything to do with who I am as a person. And then I think as I got older, I would say within like the last 5 years, especially like with everything going on, or even just in high school, you start to realize the system that's built in, and it's like, wow, it's not a people, like, it's a people problem, but it's like, this is ingrained. I think I've grown up and I'm like, wow, so it's not just you being ignorant at this point, this is just like a serious problem. So I think that's the reason GGC became what it was. It was like, okay, it's time to speak up. And the craziest thing that I did, I think I posted this on my page, but the Ray Culture shirt, I got that graphic design 2 years before I got my business license. I had gotten it done because I wanted to start a business, but I wasn't sure, and this lady was like having a sale on graphic design, so I just was like, hey, I just want to have this made. And I remember telling my sister, by the time we get this shirt, like the real shirt, it's not going to really be important. And I don't know how that came out of my mouth, but I was like, it's not going to be a thing. Because I forgot what had happened, but it was like really big at that moment where it was like trending.
I think you might be referring to the court case where some young fellows did that to an unfortunate girl and they didn't get any prison time.
I don't know if that one was it. It's like, there's so many now. It's like, which one is it? When we dropped it, I was like, I felt so ignorant myself. I was just like, how did I think that this was going to be? I guess you have hope. Like, as a woman, you think at some point things are just going to change. And I was young. I got 21 at the time, and I was thinking like, oh, this isn't going to be a thing. And then now, when we released it, looking back, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely still a thing.
Yeah, there are definitely things that are going to be a thing for a really long time, and a lot of that comes from the taboo nature of it, or just, again, because something that I actually really like about talking to you is the acknowledgement of, like, the systematic problems, because the reason I brought up that controversial court case is, I thought that was what you might have been referring to, because that was when it was, like, a very big deal. I think one of the quotes from the judge was "boys will be boys," and it was so controversial, and it's fundamentally just wrong. And when a big event like that happens, it can seem like moving forward you would think that something like that should never happen again, but it stays around, and just to go show, like, the shirt is still relevant.
I don't know how to say this without being mean. I don't want to sound mean. It's like, okay, I think that's because you're a guy that you think that, and that's not a bad thing. I think that it's definitely a privilege, like, guys have, that you don't have to see it as much. But I think for me, and it's a sad thing to say this, but like, I remember that case, but then in my head I also think of, like, which one, because there's like 3 or 4 that I heard of that have happened exactly like that.
Something I want to say: 1, don't be afraid to sound mean. 2, that wasn't my personal opinion, that was me trying to connect what I thought you might have been referring to.
Oh, no. Definitely. I'm glad that you know about it, though, because, I mean, hey, a lot of people wouldn't.
I mean, as you can tell by me trying to explain it, I'm actually very, I don't know any details about it. I just remember it being really controversial, and I remember being, and, that's what I was saying. I was like, I think the idea of maybe by the time the shirt gets made, it won't be relevant. I mean, I don't know how much of that was hopeful thinking, because
I think that's a lot of hopeful thinking. But no, I didn't mean to be mean. I was trying to say, my own flaw.
I don't even care. But keep going.
I was trying to point out my own flaw, though, was that it's kind of like, I don't know how to say this. I don't know if you'd relate to this, but a lot of, like, with the Black Lives Matter and a lot of people dying and everything, I feel bad sometimes because it's in the same sense that when someone dies now, it's like, ah, dang, it happened again. And I think it's because I'm a person of color that I'm like, okay, all right. So when it happens to women and it's on the news, like my boss was telling me about someone recently that it happened to locally, and I was like, dang, oh, well, okay. And it's sad because, like, I moved past it so quickly. Like, I mean, my heart hurt for that person, but it's so normalized to me.
Yes.
It's like, I was just like, oh, okay, another one.
I was actually going to use the word normalized, is like these horrible things happen, and because you're in the know, especially if it's like within your own, I don't know, not community, but like own thing that you like identify with, like, you know, either being a woman or a person of color, it becomes so normalized to you. And that becomes like the messed up part is like, you know, in a more ideal world, that kind of thing shouldn't be normalized because it's still a horrible thing every time.
But I think the good thing about, like, even me having a platform and trying to put it out there is, once you know about it, you can't ever go back. So, like, it's beforehand, you may not ever notice it and it may not bother you, but as soon as you know about it, you're going to see it every time. It's like you getting a car and then you seeing the same car everywhere. It's never gonna go away. So definitely, it's what it was the point of it. The point is to make you, and even with you saying, like, how do you wear the shirt in public? I felt the same way, but then I do wear it in public. I just don't wear it to work because I work with kids and it's kind of like off topic. You shouldn't, like, you know, it's a little bit rough. But I think the point is people being uncomfortable. I want you to look at me and think, what the heck? And I want you to see the shirt. And even if you want to get angry and talk about it, because I'm not going to lie, I've had times where cases have happened and I go on Twitter and I angry tweet about it. And then guys are like, oh, it's women being privileged. Oh, if you think this is a male problem. And I'm just like, you know, at the end of the day, you can yell at me all you want, but I mean, read a book, statistics, go talk to a woman that you know. Like, that's the issue, is no guy knows what's going on, but you have so many women around you, and yet every woman knows someone this has happened to. So it's like, we're not lining up. You don't really want to see the problem. So I'm going to give you a shirt, and you're going to see it today.
There is a very common human response to, and this goes for a lot of things, like for people who don't know how something goes, even something, I think a comparison I can make that is like not even related to sex or race is like, even like when I try to explain to like a young person, like a teenager, that like they act like they know everything, but in reality they don't because they're young.
My mom used to tell me that.
Yeah. It kind of in the same fashion of like a minority telling a white person that they don't actually understand what it feels like to have to deal with daily racism. I think a very common human response is not accept that, you know? Like, I think when I started work 2 years ago, no, last year, it doesn't matter. I worked with somebody who didn't believe that systematic racism existed anymore, and he was very convinced that white guys were the victims of today's culture. And it was interesting because I could tell that he lived in kind of a bubble because of the city I was in and how he talked to people and how he had been there his whole life, because it was kind of a richer area. And I remember him asking me if like people have actually treated me negatively for being darker skinned, because for that area I was, and he was like amazed that I was, and he didn't believe me. He kind of challenged that. He got angry and at one point said, "Dude, you're not even that brown." And it's hard because when you're faced with something like that from, you know, someone of the, you know, if you're on the other side and you're not educated, you can feel attacked, and no one wants to feel that way. And that's why some of these dialogues become very difficult to move forward to, because it's like, I know that wasn't his intent, was to just get aggressive with me about if I had faced racism. It's just that, like, he had never been educated on the matter and suddenly was faced with, you know, some very strong information, and a lot of it seemed very challenging to him. That's probably my favorite thing about, like, your mission statement, and also part of it, because I don't know how well... I don't know how easily I can understand some of these things, that's not the reason I brought this up, but it's also, it reminded me of it, and it's kind of a jumping off point, because it's like you said, like, even having me talk about Good Girl Company, it's like, in my daily life, I don't have to think about rape culture, but I think every girl that I've ever been friends with has. That's a whole Pandora's box to open.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely, I mean, not just with that shirt, with anything we have multiple things we come up with, but that shirt originally is in the movement line, which is basically just our line of to be about things that are happening. But I think with everything we did, the one we have coming out later this year, we had to think about it for about a month, because we wanted to figure out how to do it without triggering anyone, without not saying too much, but wanting to say something to make sure that it's shown that it's important. And we're like, how do we do that? Like, I don't want to hurt any victims, but I also don't want to sugarcoat it, to where it seems like it's okay. I think everything, it's just a matter of painting the right picture. And I mean, sometimes you don't need to make it look cute. It just needs to be where you get the point, you understand. And if you don't, it's okay to ask questions. Like, I've gotten to the point, and I know some people get angry, and I have times where I get annoyed. I had recently where some guy was being racist towards me, and I got annoyed about it, and I went off. But it's like, it's usually an issue when I tell you the truth and try to educate you, and instead of listening, you just revert back to what you think you know, and you're telling me, and I'm like, dude, you're not making any sense. But generally, I try to just, I'm like, I educate you best I can. And if you don't take that information, then at that point, it's on you. I've done my job. And it's okay that not everyone's gonna, fall into line or agree with what they can't see. It's just kind of how it works. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I'm just here, to touch a few people, and got a lot of other things to do.
What, so is that something that the topic that you're referring to, is that something you want to keep secret until it releases?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No worries. Yeah, well, because one of the other questions I was going to have, because, we've talked a lot about the rape culture shirt, because that's probably the one that really stood out to me. I wanted to know how you dictate how you decide the topics that you talk about, because I thought the piece you had Victoria do was very interesting, because I wasn't, technically that's how I learned about you, but I think an environmental message is very interesting and not something I see touched on a lot.
I mean, I think it's important. I don't know, I'm not going to say I'm getting old, but start thinking about stuff like that now, and it's like, what had brought it up, because originally what I was going to have actually put on a shirt was it was supposed to be like save the animal. So I can't even remember. I don't even know. But I remember I was talking to my sister, and I was like, if we don't save the planet, like, imagine me telling my kids about animals that used to be here. Like, what if in 5 years sharks aren't a thing? And I'm telling my kids, like, 10 years ago, there used to be sharks in the ocean, and they were so awesome. And I was like, how awful that is? Like, that I grew up with something, and my kids won't have the privilege to see it. We ruined it. And, I mean, it's not on us, obviously, completely. There are generations before us who've done this damage, but it's just, if we can do something about it, it got to the point where it was just like, okay, let's make a shirt. So we had already had the rape culture shirt, and we were like, you know what, I need something else, because I didn't want to just release that one. So I was like, let's do something that looks a little magical, but has a punch to it. I still wanted to mean something. I have like a whole bunch of people saved that I want to work with on her Instagram and Twitter and everywhere. And I was following Victoria on my personal Instagram for like a year or so, before we even were really launched or anything. Like, I was just like, I love her art. It's so beautiful. And I don't know, I just kept track of her. And then as soon as, I think I reached out to her on another project that I still haven't even done yet. And then I remembered her and came back, and I said, hey, I want you to do this for me. And I was actually thinking she wasn't going to say yes, but she did say yes. And oh my Lord, I freaking love her, man. Being an art major, I have the vision. Like, I know what I want, but I also, because I'm not good at digital art, when I visualize something, I don't visualize it as something that I do. I was like, oh God, I don't know what it's going to come out like. And then she sent the sketches, and I was like, oh, I really like this. This is cool. But you know, it's a flat lay. I've done those, so I'm like, all right, man. And when we got the digital, I was like, I'm freaking in love. And my sister was freaking out, and I was like, she went above, and she gave me more than what I thought I was going to get, what I wanted, and like she brought everything, was thinking, put it out there. I don't even know how to put it into words.
I was surprised that was a digital painting, because I thought it was done traditionally, like with like paint.
Oh wow, it probably looks like it is. Like I've had it blown up on my computer, and I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, dude, shout out to Vadoodles. She was on episode 6 of the podcast.
Go listen to it.
Honestly, she's super cool, because she's like the only guest that I've had who still like keeps up with me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I'm not like her friend, but like I didn't just reach out to you and then you left.
Yeah, that's really cool. I try to keep up with her stuff, but I mean, I like her stuff, so I'm always up there.
Is Good Girl Company, are they gonna have more products, or is it primarily clothing you're focused on?
That's a great question. Thank you. No, we're not just clothing. Thank God. That's like my biggest fear, is someone thinking we just do clothes. I can actually expand on that. So our Twitter, I've posted some stuff about it, but originally, because I've taken some business classes, they tell you not to go into too many avenues at once. So when we launched, we said, okay, let's start the clothing line. And actually what was supposed to happen, the two girls who actually wore our clothing on our page, they weren't supposed to wear Victoria's shirt or the Rape Culture shirt. I had drawn up like legitimate fashion clothing that I was going to have manufactured and made, and we were going to release. But we ended up having some issues with the girl who was helping us make the samples, and last minute, because our day was coming up, I was like, forget it, let's do the shirt. Like, let's just do that. So we were supposed to have actual custom designed clothing that I had created, posted up for our release date. That messed up. And so we were like, let's just do clothing first. So then we released the 2 shirts, but we're supposed to be working on, I'm not going to say a for sure date, but towards the beginning of next year or end of this year, because our platform is generally supposed to be creative platform for a voice for women. So we wanted to, because obviously, no offense, clothing isn't the only love that I have. Like, I like drawing clothes and I like coming up with ideas, but you know, I like other things. I read books 24/7. So one of the things we said we were going to do is start publishing. I've written one book, so I wanted to get other women, or the goal is to have other female authors, or authors that have a female lead character, and hopefully, you know, I want everyone in it. I want different people of color, LGBTQ. I want everyone to be part of it. That's the point, is to give more diversity and voices for women, and really more people for people to look up to. So if we do have stuff that are for kids, because there will be probably some for kids, I don't want to give too much away, but I want to really, I guess like you said earlier, be the person that I would have wanted to see it when I was a kid and look up to. Literature is definitely something that we're going down the avenue of. Our clothing line will be releasing custom designs that I've created, as well as still moving on with the movement line. I would say there's probably more avenues we'll go down. I mean, we were originally supposed to be also having paintings and stuff like that. Yeah, we were supposed to, but yeah. I'm good at drawing, and I draw smaller, and I didn't want to, it's harder for me to get on a bigger canvas. We're waiting on it. I'm just like, I don't want to rush anything, and I want it to be the best of whatever I do put out. So right now, I just know for sure we have clothing, we have literature coming, so that will be it. And obviously working with a lot of other artists, we're trying to get more artists, more authors, whether it's poets or whatever. We want to work with more people. And the one thing I can say, not that this is a question about us that I try to be different about, I know a lot of artists, I feel like, I mean, this is a platform. I don't want this business to be a profit thing where it's like, I get it, we make money, but I don't want it to be just, this is about us making money. And that's the last thing that I want. I wanted, like even with Victoria, I wanted it to be putting her out there. She's amazing, and she did going to say, oh, here's our shirt and just leave it at that. Like, no, Victoria did this. It's amazing. Check out her stuff, because that was actually one of the big things we wanted to make sure we did, was to put other artists out there. And I think her name is even in the description on our website on the shirt. I think it is. That was something that was really important to me, and I wanted to get other artists, and if they aren't big now, I wanted to still put them out there. I'm small, it didn't really matter to me. It's really about talent. And we work with a few makeup artists that are great, done like, you know, photos and art, clothing. There are models that I still want to work with. There's just so many people that I'm just like, I want to show, and I guess it is mostly women, but I want to give them that platform, and I want to show off us. Not me, but like all of us. So that's very important to me. This brand is literally just me wanting to put us out there.
Do you have anything left that you want to just put out there to my audience or into the world? You know, you've started this company and you're clearly very passionate about it, and I really like that. And I don't know, I just maybe, you know, Twitter or whatever doesn't always give you the opportunity to say something, or if you want to reiterate something.
I mean, yeah, I guess give us a follow on GGCLC on Instagram. That's not really all I want to say, but I feel like I say so much, and I mean, if you watch us, really watch what's coming. I mean, we have so much, and I just want everyone to be a part of everything. I don't know what to say.
Everybody go follow us. The links are going to be in the description. And then I'm also obviously going to tweet about this and share you on Instagram once I have this edit up. Thank you so much for coming on. Oh, what's up?
Thank you for the cute little animation of me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm going to post that. I don't think I posted it on Twitter yet, but I'm going to tweet it right before the edit of this goes live. And I feel like this is probably one of the more important episodes. I'm going to keep following your stuff, obviously. I didn't do it, but I wanted to... Does the shirt Victoria made come in men's sizes? I didn't check.
Yes, it does.
I wanted to buy that, but I'm also poor right now. So I will someday. But yeah. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.